All right, everybody ready? Good evening. I'll call the special study session to order, special meeting of the Federal Way City Council for February 21st, 2017. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Well, we are here today for a special study session regarding revenue options. If you recall, in regard to the funding for the proposed funding for the additional officers, we had identified a possible one of the sources was the Transportation Benefit District. While setting that up, first reading had gone through. In second reading, it failed to receive a motion in support and therefore died in the process. Today's purpose and exercise is to go through and have our finance director, Ariwoola, talk about revenue options, where we stand right now in regard to this process. And I want to make sure it's very clear before we get started, the purpose of this is not to make a recommendation. I'm not making a recommendation at this point. What I'd like to do is have us have this presentation, talk about this, and then my recommendation will be forthcoming after further study. I think the last slide says future study, but I meant further study. So with that, I will introduce our finance director, Ade.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council. As the Mayor pointed out, it is just intended to share information with you and hopefully answer some of your questions as in regard to some of the revenue options before us as we move forward. And again, as Mayor said, the Council, I think Mayor's recommendation will come at a later time. I will try to cover some of the revenue and compare them to other jurisdictions just to give you an idea of where we are compared to other entities. Yes, I have shared some of this with you before, but I think it is important to share with you again and also share with the citizens so that they can have a perspective in terms of where we are in terms of a revenue rate or tax rate compared to other jurisdictions. And also, I will share with you some of the available revenue options. Again, I've shared this with you before. For each $1 property tax that an average citizen in the city of Federal Way pays, only 8 cents comes to the city out of $1 in property tax. So the major part of the property tax goes to the school, to the state, fire and emergency management, and county, and only 8 cents go to the city for every $1 property tax. Looking at the property tax rate for 2000 that was collected in 2016. This is the distribution. The portion that is voted on, the portion that is non-voted, and the total tax rate. This is what was collected in 2016. If you look at the right column, you can see the percentage of the total amount and where or what tax jurisdiction got the most or got the least. The major part of the tax for 2016 was actually voted on by the citizens. So you are looking out of $14.55, $8 of it was voted for, and only $6.50 is non-voted. For the current year, 2017, this is the breakdown. Again, the city is only getting a little bit of 8 cents on a dollar. A major part of it is going to the school district. I'm showing you this not to say one district is getting more or whether they deserve it or not. I'm just sharing the information with you. You know, I think everybody deserves whatever it is that they're getting, but I'm just trying to share with you the breakdown of the taxes. The same thing, if you look at the bottom, for 2017, out of 13.68, 7.5 of that also is voted on, you know, just so that you know, and less than half is non-voted on the third column. That is how the pie is shared. Again, 56% is voted for by the citizens, and 44% is non-voted for the 2017. King County calculated that the median residence value in Federal Way of a residential property is about $250,000. So I'm saying with the rate in 2017, a median resident value of $252,000 will pay a tax of $3,510. And out of that $3,510, 1,900 of it, the citizens voted for it. And 1,562 of it is what is now voted on. And again, for 2017, for a median residence value of $250,000, this shows the breakdown of that tax in 2017. And for 3,000, as I defined, the median resident, how the dollar amount is actually spread. Out of the 3,510, who gets what? This is the breakdown of that amount. The city of Federal Way will get $290 out of 3,510. For the past several years, if we compare ourselves to some of the neighboring cities, this is the tax rate for the city alone, comparing our city to other cities, how much they levy. Since 2008 through 2017, if you look at the green, that is the lowest for each of those years. We levy the lowest. And the red shows the highest for each of those years. For most of the year was the Seattle. Then, of course, SeaTac. Just to let you see where we rank in the scheme of things. As I pointed out, I think last year, if you look at the assessed value of properties within these comparable cities and how much tax they are levying, this is how we rank. For the city of Federal Way, about $8.9 billion, that is the value of our assessed property. And we levy $10.5 million. And you look at Burien, the value for theirs is about 5.16 or 5.2, and they levy 7.4. Kent, 15 billion, and their levy was 22.65. Auburn is 7.9 billion, which is 1 billion less than the city of Federal Way, and they levy 16 million in property tax. SeaTac, the assessed value, 4.9 billion, and they have 14.7 million. Renting, 13.8 billion and 37 million in tax. Seattle, the same story there. Sustainable funding options, which we went through these during the budget presentation, equal application of utility tax, admission tax, and actually the council did pass that. Yes, it was capped at 60 cents. Permit fees, that was also done because we reviewed the cost of issuing our permit licenses, and that was revised. So that was done. Business registration, that was also reviewed, and that was done. B&O tax and TBD, which the council declined. Equal application of tax utility, again, this presentation is not about proposing an idea or just sharing information with the council. Identifying some of the utilities that are taxable: water, sewer, gas, electric, stormwater, phone, cell phone, pager, cable. All of those are taxable. As of now, the city is not levying anything on the water. It doesn't mean the residents are not paying. And I'll go over that in a short while. Separate districts provide utilities to, especially the water, to the residents of Federal Way. One of the districts that provide services, provide water services to the residents of Federal Way is Lake Haven. Another one is Tacoma Water, Highline Water. And some of our residents are using their own well, so they have their own private water service. The same thing with sewer. You have Lake Haven, Midway, those that have their own septic tank. This is the map of Federal Way, and right here to the north, for the water service, they have their own different district. You have this that is served by different district, which in this case is Tacoma. The major part of it in the middle is Lake Haven. So for water, we have about 3 different groups. Of course, Lake Haven is the largest provider of water service to the city. And this is the sewer service. The same thing. There's a small pocket right here at the top, and the majority is served by Lake Haven, and you have some private owners that use septic tanks right here at the bottom. As of now, we have an agreement with Lake Haven that provide water and sewer to the larger part of the city. We have a franchise agreement with them for 3.6, and that agreement was signed last year. It's good for 10 years, so that will run through 2026. In exchange for fire protection charges, which they are charging us, I think we have about 3,200 hydrant with them with $49.84 per quarter, which is coming to about $638 annually. We have Tacoma Water. We also have an agreement with them also, which provide water. The Tacoma Water, they charge the residents 8% utility tax. Yes, Lake Haven is only charging or paying the city 3.6, but Tacoma charge 8%. And in exchange, again, they cover the fire hydrant protection, which is about $157,000 annually. We do have contract with both Tacoma and Lake Haven. Tacoma Water was signed in 2012, so probably will expire in 2022. Highline Water, we don't have any agreement with them, but they serve most of Des Moines, and they do charge 6% utility tax. Then you have the private septic tanks, and then you have Midway Sewer that also serve the northern part of our area. Currently, the utility tax that we collect on all the other utility services is 7.75. You know, again, as I've shown, you know, for most of our water and sewer, it is 0. Yes, some residents are paying utility tax within the city of Federal Way, and some are not. And some utility districts pay franchise fees, and some are not, because we don't have agreement with them. Just to give a rough estimate of how much it will be, a 7.75% on a $50 utility bill, you're looking at $388. On $80, $620. On $100, $7.75. On $120, $9.30. On $140 utility bill, you're looking at $10.85. And $160 utility bill, you're looking at $12. This is just to give you an idea of what other neighboring cities are charging. Moving on to another source of revenue, which is the admission tax, which the council has implemented. You know, this is just a recap of what we've done before. Business and occupation, which, you know, is just an information only. I think because we elected to do the business registration, this is no longer in the play. Then the TBD, the council declined. The reason why I put this in there is just to show you and the citizens the impact of the ST3. With the ST3, the property tax, they will increase it by 25 cents for every $1,000 value on the house. So that takes effect January 1st. So for a median home of $252,000, there will be additional $63 that will be levied for ST3. That is just one portion of their tax or revenue. So this takes effect January 1st. Another part of their revenue is the sales tax. As of now, the City of Federal Way sales tax is 9.5%. With the ST3 passing, it will be increased by 0.5%. So it will be going from 9.5% to 10%. This takes effect April 1st. Motor vehicle, which is equivalent of TBD, currently they have a 3%, a 0.3% on the value of an automobile, and that runs through 2028. Now, on top of this, there will be additional $80 per $10,000 value of a car. So for a family of two, a family with 2 cars, with each car about $20,000, so they will pay another $320 on top of the current rate of 0.3% that runs through 2028. This new rate will take effect March 1st, 2017. I will be glad to answer any question.
Dave, before we go any further, I just want to make sure there are a couple things that aren't said in your presentation. First is, if the utility tax was garnered, how much additional revenue would that bring into the city?
If we were to use 7.75, I think that would bring more than $1 million into the city.
And what was the TBD expected to bring in?
The TBD that we were calculating before, I think if I remember correctly, it was about 0.6 million. I can't remember.
Okay. So, in regard to the number of officers that we were potentially planning on hiring, or were included in our budget, were 9 additional officers. If we did the utility tax, could we bring on those officers? Mm-hmm. Is that yes?
Yes.
Now, one last thing before I open it up for questions is, you had said that the contract with Lake Haven, what year was that entered into?
2022. Excuse me, the Lake Haven was last year.
Yeah.
So it's for 10 years. It will go till 2026.
And was there specific language in the contract that would not allow, but that would essentially dissolve the contract if we implement it? Could you go back to that?
There's a language in there, but it's not very clear. So I think I'll probably defer that to the legal group. It says the city can, but I'm not so sure how that will be interpreted. I'll let Ryan speak to that briefly.
Right.
Yes, so the Lake Haven franchise does have a clause that expressly states what will happen if we impose a tax. And that's the franchise fee will no longer be paid and the tax would take over instead. Whether or not they try to sue us, whether or not they think the agreement is enforceable, the tax is enforceable, that's a separate issue. I think what Ade was talking about was the Tacoma franchise, which is far less clear. It has no termination language in it, so that is an open question on whether or not we could terminate that franchise.
Okay. Councilmember Kopeng and Councilmember Duclos.
Ade, thanks for the presentation. I got a couple of questions, but the mayor's comment sparked another. Regarding the utility tax at 7.75%, you said the revenue that would come in if that was implemented would be about $1.1 million? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is that a net increase above the current franchise fee?
Yes, that would be, yes.
A net increase?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. I wanted to make sure that was clear. Going through the charts, in 2016 and then 2017, it looks like...
Councilmember Kopeng, I actually think, wouldn't it double the yield that we'd get from what is the current yield in regard to the franchise agreement? How much do we get from that every year?
From a franchise fee now, we're getting about 930, but we're paying most of that out as well.
So what's the net?
The net that if we were to have a full 7.75 would be about 1.1.
No, what's the current net?
Actually, we're losing, because of what we're paying out,
All right.
we're actually losing money now.
All right.
I want to walk this through so it's very clear. It's become less clear to me. So right now, we have a franchise fee that nets how much? Or not net, the gross is how much?
For the current franchise fee, we're paying out actually to Lake Haven for the light. Okay. More than what we're getting from Lake Haven. And we have a loss, I think, of about more than 100,000.
So we right now, we have a franchise fee that is actually losing, or that there's more revenue being out to service the city than we're bringing in. So it's really a wash.
Correct.
Okay.
Not a wash.
Yeah, it's less than a wash.
Less
right?
than,
yeah,
yes,
it's less than a wash.
losing money.
It's losing. But then we go to, if we were to change direction and get rid of the franchise fee and implement a utility tax, the responsibilities that are still taken care of, or that are being taken care of with the franchise fee, would those remain with the city? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes.
So the current revenue, whatever that is, the current gross is how much?
The current gross that we're getting from Lake Haven, I think it's about 975,000.
Okay. All right. And then the gross, if we went to 775, would be about 2 million?
Correct.
Okay. All right. I think that makes it clear for me. So we would still have the same responsibilities for maintenance of
the hydrants
and the lights. Okay. But there would be $1.1 million in additional revenue. Okay. All right, thank you for that. Getting back to my second question, on the chart, I noticed the property tax rate in 2017, the collection is actually down versus 2016. Is that accurate, or is that just, that's on page 5 and 6? And while you're flipping pages, I think accounting for ST3 in this is, I mean, it's not part of property tax, obviously, but it's going to affect it, certainly. Because they've basically grown the pie, haven't they?
Okay, on page 5.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got voted revenue for 2016 is 8 million, or 8, whatever it is.
That is 8.04. That is the rate.
Okay.
That is not the dollar amount.
Oh, okay, okay.
That is the 8.048 per 1,000 of property valuation. So the total levy rate, which is this 14.55, that is $14.55 for each $1,000
Got it.
of property valuation.
Okay, so these are percentages as opposed to raw, okay, okay. All right. The last question I have is, it looks like we've got a pretty limited pool of options. And I know that Councilmember Duclos is going to be working with FEDRAC and to look at additional funding options in collaboration, certainly with staff, but I would think that there probably are fees that we could look at that specifically impact the city resources. I think there's more that we can do to kind of take a look at not just spreading out more the tax burden on everybody, but actually looking at the highest impact users within our city. So I think that maybe having a little bit more creative approach to how we look at the impacts in the city and how we basically fund or address the more acute needs in our community by targeting the highest users. That makes sense, and I think that's a business. So anyway, that's a long question, but I think that it'd be good to have a bigger pool of options.
Actually, because during the budget process, we went through the fees, and that was actually greatly reviewed, which include some of the permitting fees and the rate that we charge. And I think if I remember correctly, one of the, my explanation was that some of the rate that we were using were based on salary rate from previous for many years back. So we modified that in 2016. I'm now and we do revise. Now we revise or review our permit fees annually. So for 2018 or towards the end of this year, we'll be coming back to review that again. Maybe where you are heading is, I think, in terms of how we fund some of the programs, maybe the council needs to look at that at some point. For example, the money from CDBG, how that is allocated, that may be, in terms of the fee that we charge, yes, we review that annually, and that will be coming before you again towards the end of this year, but we review that annually.
Councilmember Duclos.
Dave, thank you very much for the presentation and taking us back through all of this. I got a question on the county, the 10.2. How was that set, and what do we get from the county for that?
The Port of Seattle 1.2?
No, the county, 10.2,
What,
on page 4.
page 4.
4 on mine. Yeah,
4 and 5.
yeah. Either way, but on page 4, it shows the different numbers of all. And most of them I have no problem with, but I'm wondering what what the county gives us for that.
Probably the King County Jail, Public Health, prosecution. I think 75% of the court's costs
10.2.
relate to criminal justice.
Superior Court.
Okay.
All felonies obviously go through King County Superior Court. And that's also all juvenile offenses are handled in King County Superior Court.
And the state? Is that the highway?
The state is part of, they also fund school out of that,
But the school gets almost,
in addition to this, to the.
school gets
the school district.
46.4.
Yes,
And
but the portion that the state gets, they fund school also from that portion as well.
and higher ed too, second colleges, universities, the public universities.
I can see this, but the city of Federal Way needs to get some money out of this stuff too. And I think we're paying out an awful lot and not getting a return on investment that we should be getting for these dollars. Otherwise, I think we should be paying less. And keeping that here to support our own city.
All right, thank you. Councilmember, Councilmember Selsky, and then Councilmember Asafadassin.
All right, thanks, Mayor Farrell. And thanks, Professor. Can you please turn to slide 10? Just got a question about property tax rates shown on there. So it looks from right to left on the table there, we go from 2008 to 2017, and in 2017, looks like our rate there is 1.13, which is down from 2016, but I assume we're going to be collecting more property tax because the assessed value is up compared to, and if I'm not mistaken, our net on that is just a little over $100,000. Does that sound about right?
Plus the new construction, yes.
Okay, give or take, but I mean, it seems like that figure goes up about 100,000 a year,
Correct.
so.
Part of the advantage this year is that the council, because one of my presentation to the council is, if you do not pass the need assessment,
Right.
we will not actually be able to get the 1%. So because you pass that, that is part of the reason why we were even able to get that amount. Otherwise, we would not have been able to get that.
And if we don't pass that, we lose that opportunity that carries on forever.
Yes.
And we'll get further and further behind the property tax that our neighboring cities are charging as well, so, okay. And then I just was thinking of a couple other things here that I want to ask a question about. Outside of the box of with these options that were presented tonight, or options we've looked at and, for example, denied with the TBD, at least denied up till now. One of them is the utility tax rate is 7.75%.
Correct.
That we charge, other than, of course, water and sewer. What is it that caps us at 7.75%? Is that something self-imposed by the state?
Actually, other than water and soil, it is capped at 6%. Then, with the vote of the council, you can raise that. If you have your own water and soil, you can levy up to 10%. And that is the 7.75 that we arrived at was modified a couple of years ago to dedicate the 1.75 for a specific need. So actually, generally, it's capped at about at 6%.
Okay, but council action can increase that if we choose to do that then? That 1.5 additional?
Yes, I can't remember whether it needs to be voted on, but I think.
Well, I think.
So,
Go ahead.
so basically every tax except for water and sewer has some state statute that regulates it, and most of them are very well defined. This is not regulated at all right now. So there is no cap in state law. And this is part of the ambiguity that it's not expressly authorized by state statute, and that's why some jurisdictions are arguing that we don't have the authority to impose this tax. So this is a conservative approach. I believe there are people that are going significantly higher when they're talking about water and sewer taxation, especially when they own the utility. But I suspect that if it gets too out of hand, the state legislature will start to regulate it.
Okay, but I mean, just again, thinking outside of the box of
Yes.
the options that we've been given, we could theoretically increase
Yes.
that 1.75. Now, when I look at utility tax, I believe we're collecting 12 to 13 million dollars or something like that, was what we collect in 2016.
16, yes.
And that tax affects a lot of different methods of taxation, cell phones, I mean, anything in that list that you showed us. So I'd like to also maybe look at this as an option. Because again, there are so many different items that are taxed in that we're really affecting a greater population of the city, because who doesn't have a cell phone? Who doesn't have these services, cable TV and whatnot? Again, as an option to throw in the bucket of options that we're looking at. Okay, and then,
Deputy Mayor had a clarifying point. just
Sure.
quickly.
Yeah, Councilmember Selsky, I'm not totally clear on your adding an option here. Are you suggesting the possibility of increasing the utility tax on other
other than water and sewer.
utilities? Okay.
Correct.
But those are limited by the state, that rate, without a vote of the people. We went to a vote of the people to raise the utility tax previously.
From 6.
From 6.
Right.
Most of them are currently limited at 6, and so
Mm-hmm.
we went to a vote and raised it to 7.75
Okay.
for public safety.
And that was Prop 1, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that's what I'm looking at is potentially, call it Prop 2, that we do something like that. If we need the police officers and the citizens are willing to do it, maybe we consider a Prop 2, call it what you will, but we look at something like that as well in the fall election.
Okay, is that it?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Sefadossin, then Councilmember Honda.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Councilmember Copang asked my question, but with the, on page 17, Lake Haven and Tacoma Water District, where you have 3.6% franchise fee, but the charges per hydrant, right? We have those fees. And if we take it over, we have to also service those hydrants.
Actually, for Lake Haven, we're currently servicing those hydrants now, and that is the amount that we're paying on them.
So we won't pay on them, but we'll be responsible.
We're responsible for them now, based on the current agreement that we have.
Okay.
So that is part of why the amount of money that we're getting from them is not enough to pay them back for the hydrant and pay for the electricity.
Okay. No, I forgot the rest of my question, but I think, okay, I'll ask you.
Okay. So for now, we are paying fire hydrant $638,000 annually. And on top of these, we also pay for the light. We pay this directly to Lake Haven. And they pay us 3.6 based on their revenue. So what I'm saying is, after we collect our 3.6 from them and pay them this amount and pay the electricity, we are losing money. Before we signed the agreement, they used to pay for lights and cover this hydrant. There's a pocket of community in there that have street light that they charge them. Lake Haven used to charge them, collect their money, and use their money to pay for the electricity. And when we signed the agreement, we say, don't charge them anymore. So now the city is now responsible for paying those electricity bills.
All right, Councilmember Honda.
Thank you. You have a lot of experience in financial stuff with cities and other jurisdictions. Are there any other sources of revenue that other cities have been able to use besides the ones that you've listed?
Other source of revenue in addition to the ones that I've listed here.
Right.
You have others that have done lead lift. You have others that actually have higher source of revenue than we do. Like I just pointed out in the property tax, some entities are collecting more in property tax revenue than we do. You have a city of Tequila that has a higher sales tax revenue than we do. You have a city of SeaTac. In addition to their property tax, they also have a higher rate of tax or revenue from their lodging and motel tax revenue. So you also have others that do the TBD that we're doing. I think I made a presentation on that, late last year, listing some of the cities that have done TBD. You have a fee for services that others also do, based on whatever rate that they are charging for either for their community services or whatever. So I hope I answer your question.
In a roundabout way, yes, thank you.
All right, Deputy Mayor.
Seems to me that I've heard a couple additional taxes. There's a head tax for employees, I think, in a couple of cities.
A what?
What I've heard called a head tax, so the number of employees, there's a fee, a tax on the number of employees.
I think we discussed that when we're doing B&O.
Okay,
Where, the rate they calculate the B&O is based on the number of employees.
Okay.
Or they can use based on the number of, the dollar amount of revenue.
Well, actually, our business registration fee calculates based on number of employees.
sure, that's right. So it's wrapped into that.
Right.
Okay, and then one other one that I've heard, and I don't know if it's accurate or not, is that perhaps the city of SeaTac is able to charge a parking tax because they have so many parking facilities with the airport and the hotels there that they,
Which actually
Yeah,
tie
okay.
into lodging tax. And again, a SeaTac, Taquilla area, because of their close proximity to the airport, yes. I don't think for a fee like that for City of Federal Way, actually, we're trying to stop people from driving. So, but, I mean, yes, it is an option, but there are some options that are more, that are better used in some areas
Right.
than the other.
absolutely, yeah, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
All right, Councilmember Duclos and then Councilmember Kopang.
Aday, on page 12, you put down sustainable funding options, and the first one was an equal application of utility tax. Would you talk about that a little bit more?
Okay. We have actually some the residents that are served by Tacoma Water now. They pay utility tax. So those that are served by Lake Haven are not paying utility tax. So you already have inequity already. And again, I'm not recommending anything to the council, I'm just providing you the facts. So the people that live within the Tacoma water area pay 8%. They remit that to the city of Tacoma. It doesn't come to us. Based on the agreement that we have with the Tacoma water, it says that whatever you collect, you use it to neutralize the hydrant and maybe the light. So they are already charging the customers, the residents of Federal Way that live within that area. for 8%, even though the city's rate is 7.75. So the equal application is to just make sure if we're gonna levy utility tax, based on what we define as utility, all these services are utilities. Let's treat them equally. You know, that is what I'm driving at in there, that just to make sure all the residents,
And with that, how much would that bring in addition?
if we were to actually go after, the number that we were looking at before was just the Lake Haven. If we were able to do the Lake Haven and able to do the Tacoma and able to do the area to the north, I think it can actually, even though we're talking about our 1.1 million, it can actually exceed that amount. But we would not be able to flip the switch and just do that. I think, again, and that is why I defer to the lawyer to make sure that the agreement that we have with Lake Haven and Tacoma, that we can, if we can just change it, and I don't know if we can just change it. If we can, yes, there's a potential to raise actually more than 1.1 million from that.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Kopeng.
Thank you. Aday, I think this is one of my least favorite topics, and I know we're spending a lot of time on that, and really I think it's because of a structural deficiency in the way our taxes are raised, or the funding mechanisms we have, property tax being the primary one, and that puts us at a deficit with our neighboring communities. In spite of that, we maintain a very high level of service.
Yes.
And I certainly remain impressed with what we've done as a city with the revenues that we have. What myself and I think Councilmember Honda, and I know Councilmember Duclos has talked about as well with her special task force, is looking at, I'd ask that the staff look at creative or additional ways to bring revenue in. I may have been too winding in my point, but I think to be clear, I think that there are definitely more ways for us to look at raising revenue than we currently have available with this list of options. So expanding the list of options, I think, would be helpful to us as a council, whether we do anything with them or not.
Yeah.
But having more options, I think, is very important. I also think that it's important. I mean, it's like what Councilmember Selsky said about looking at what we have right now and maybe going to the people and saying, we need more, what do you think? Obviously, it's a big undertaking, but certainly an option. But I want to make sure that we don't leave a stone unturned and that we really are addressing, I mean, it's easy, relatively easy to say, just everybody pay more taxes. But I think it's also important for us to go to the people with a strategic plan for how we're addressing the highest users too. So having, trucks affect our streets more than automobiles by a substantial amount.
Yes.
But is there a tax differential right now in how that's addressed? I don't believe there is. So again, there's other options, and I think it would be good to really expand our range of options and to really address some of the more specific needs that we have based on usage and impact. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Honda.
Thank you. The police department does a really good job of going out and finding grants and getting free money for us. Are there other grants that we're not getting for other departments that perhaps we could go after to make, get some more revenue into the city?
There's usually, I think there's usually some other grants that we can go. We've been very, very successful in some. I think marijuana is one of the driving force in raising money for some of our projects. So we've been very successful in that. Yes, there's COP grant. The danger in some of the grants, they are usually one time. they are usually for capital. The conversation that we're having is more about funding personnel. Hardly will you be able to find a grant that will fund a position forever. So we've been very successful in going after capital grants, in going after COP grant for the police that will handle a limited period of time. And we've been very successful. We can still do more to look for some more. And, but like I said, and I think that is one of the reasons, I personally, I take pride in the way our road in Federal Way looks compared to the other cities. And it's because we've been able to leverage some of those grants with cities' money to beautify those roads. I'm not suggesting that there's none. There are probably a couple of more grants that we can look to. But the caution is they are usually one time for a specific project, not usually for personnel.
Okay. My second question is I think it was 2006 when we did the Prop 1 for public safety. What was the history before that, and how did the city go about convincing the voters that that was something we needed to do? Do you remember?
Sure.
I know that day wasn't here, so that's why I looked at you.
I think the timing was excellent. It was placed on the ballot, and good information, the need for additional public safety coverage was expressed to the people, and the people voted very positively. I don't remember the actual percentages. The staff could find that for us, but there was a very positive vote. So it went into effect, and it's been extremely important to the city. But I would also like to add, to underscore the fact that our city has a strong record of being successful in obtaining grant money over the years. And having served on several transportation boards, I've been able to observe that very directly. Our staff have a very positive reputation for providing very complete and accurate information in applying for grants. And in other words, when our staff say that something is shovel-ready, it really is shovel-ready, so that the folks who review the grants have confidence in the application, and that makes a difference. And the fact that we take care of our roads saves our city money because it's more expensive to dig them up, which happens. You need to dig them up if you don't maintain them because they fall apart to the degree that they need to be replaced. But because the grants come from even the federal level, certainly the state level as well, we end up saving everybody money, not just ourselves, by maintaining our streets.
Councilmember Duclos?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. That was a good little history lesson on us. I think Federal Way has done wonderful for the taxpayers and for our residents with the amount of money we collect compared to other cities. Our streets are outstanding, and I've talked about biking all across many areas around here, and the potholes that I almost lost my bike in at some places, and Federal Way is fantastic. We do an awful lot with a little, but we can't continue to do an awful lot with a little because the prices are going up, and we can't do that. I was ready to propose going out for a property tax increase with a vote of the people and making the case for why we need it. Unfortunately, I think Sound Transit has eliminated that for us with what they are charging people. The amount of money that households will be paying into that is astronomical. Most of us won't even live to see it come to Federal Way. So we need to look at some other options. Cutting staff is not an option. We are lean and mean, and we do need more police officers. Everybody has said that. You said you wanted to put 9 on, and that takes money to do. So it's very difficult, but we're going to have to come up with something.
Councilmember Zelsky.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Farrell. I totally agree with that. I'm just looking at some, well, first of all, I guess I want to pile on about grant funding that our Public Works Department brings into the city. It's millions and millions. It seems like every Land Use and Transportation Committee meeting we have once a month, there are at least 2 or 3 grant funding projects that are brought to the committee for moving forward. So, yeah, we definitely are out there going after grants. I know it, at least from that aspect of it. And so hats off to you, Marwan, and your entire staff for that. That's why I brought that up, the thought about potentially taking a vote to the people for the utility tax in a Prop 2 or whatever we would call it. You know, looking back in 2006, 2007, when we did Prop 1, that has brought a lot of money into the city, but I'm just looking at this popular financial report, and it says that since 2007, when that was brought on, the police officer positions have increased by 20%. That's a substantial amount of police officers that we brought on, but also, the salaries have increased for police officers by 29% and lieutenants 24% and so on and so forth. So those expenses continue to accrue. We know we had a tough year last year. We know we need more police officers. It's just how do we pay for it? And so, again, that's why I brought up the thought of this other idea to see if that is a popular thing with our voters, to see if they, in fact, would support this in the same way they did back in 2007 when there was a great need for this as well. So, okay, so I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
All right, council, anything else?
Mayor, may I say something?
Yes, please.
I think it is important for the council to understand, for the citizens to also understand the fact that you have property tax that is increasing by 1%. We know what our gas for driving the vehicle, how much they are going up. We know the car that we used to pay maybe about $30,000 for, just about 5 years ago. We're paying $45,000 for that same car. We also know that during the recession, yes, maybe most entities are not paying or were not able to pay their employees. Now, after the recession, people are recruiting. Just the number of employees that we've lost is a signal to show that we have to increase how much we pay those employees. So if the revenue is not growing to match the rate at which those costs are going up, right there, we will always fall behind. And with ST3, with the way it is, we are most vulnerable with our engineers, which everybody is saying that for public works, we've done an excellent job in maintaining our road, in applying for grants. When we lose those skilled employees, we start from the scratch. I come with a different view, especially coming from Eastern Washington. In Ellensburg, if you want to take another job, you leave town. For somebody from City of Federal Way to take another job, they don't have to move their home. That is part of what makes us more vulnerable, especially the cities on I-5 corridor, because the job market is much, much larger. And people commute from Olympia to Federal Way. People commute from Federal Way to Seattle. So we're competing with Seattle. Unfortunately, we don't have the tax base of Seattle. Just as the revenue rate is not climbing high at the same rate, our spending, because of the good heart of you, the council, you want to take care of the most vulnerable among us, which is a good thing. But that also costs money. When we charge fees, you want to protect the most vulnerable among us by either exempting them, but we also need that same money on the other side. So I don't really envy you, but it's such a tough deal that we have to keep up to be able to deliver the services that you believe in. We have to keep up with our revenue in order to protect the same vulnerable people that you want to protect. We can't do both. We can't do it both ways. Unfortunately, at times, it's the middle class that often gets squeezed. And I think I can hear what you're saying, that we need to level, maybe user fees or whatever, so that the same group is not the one that is getting hit. But we need to find sustainable source of revenue just to keep up with our neighbors.
All right, thank you. With that, council, anything else for the discussion? All right, with that, we are adjourned until our regular meeting at 7. Great discussion, council. Great job today.